Hello everybody, in today's video we're going to be giving you an update on the winter storm in the western United States. We'll actually have my official snowfall forecast at the end of today's video, or actually towards the middle of today's video, so make sure you are staying tuned all the way until the end so you don't miss out on that. It'll be a detailed forecast, so we'll be going in two parts of the western United States and giving you a general idea of how much snow you should be expecting, and then we're also going to be timing this system out, so giving you an idea of when the system should move in, when you should get some of that rain or snow, and when it should be all out of here. And then we'll, at the end of today's video, talk about the thunderstorm potential in the central and southern plains. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the video. As you can see, here's the current National Weather Service page. We already have a few winter weather advisories in that purple color for parts of California, Nevada, and Utah. I believe there's actually a few more up in Oregon, although I could be mistaken right there. We have some frost advisories in parts of coastal Maine, and then we have some freeze watches in northwestern Nevada and northeastern California. We have a few winter storm watches in southwestern Montana, and then we have some flood watches in northern Utah and southern Idaho. We have a few wind advisories in parts of Nevada and California, and then we have some red flag warnings for fire danger in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Colorado. We have a few coastal flood advisories along the mid-Atlantic coast, and other than that, we don't have much else going on. So it's mainly that system out in the west, and then the rest of the U.S. is fairly quiet. Yesterday, we had a high temperature of 102 degrees in Rio Grande Village, Texas. The low temperature was 4 miles northwest of Marion, Montana, where they got down to 17 degrees. The highest rainfall report was 8.1 inches in Spencer, Tennessee, and there were no snowfall reports yesterday. So here's a look at the forecasted radar from the European model. You're going to see that this system is going to start up in the northwest and into western Canada, and then eventually that'll move on down to the south before moving up again through the central United States. And good news for those of you who live in the northern plains, most likely it's not going to come in the form of snow, but you will get some precipitation or rainfall associated with this event as it starts to climb to the north. So you will actually get a little bit of rain, and I know those areas definitely need some rain, so that's going to be some good news. And the West in general will be relieving some of their drought issues. It looks like they're getting a fairly good amount of precipitation in general. Here's a look at for Monday morning. So the system is going to continue to slide on to the southeast. We're going to see a little bit more snow develop. Again, this is by Monday morning in parts of Nevada, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, but it's going to be mainly in the mountains and the high elevations. It's not really going to be on some of that flatter ground. So you'll have to get higher up in elevation to see the snow by Monday morning. But what we start to see is that as we get into the evening hours of Monday and especially into Tuesday morning, you're going to start to see that the snow, or the rain, will transition to snow in a lot of these spots. And one of the reasons that's happening is because, of course, you're going from the daylight time, so you're going from maybe 12 p.m., 1 p.m. in the afternoon, where you still have the sun out. It's going to warm up your temperatures by a few degrees. Well, now, once it's nighttime, you don't have any of that heating effect, and you're actually cooling down to the point where you might fall below freezing, and at that point, you would actually see some snowfall. So at this time, it's not just high elevation snowfall, it is also for some of those lower lying spots in, for example, southern Montana, in central Nevada, western Utah. These areas aren't especially mountainous, especially areas like eastern Nevada or western Utah. They're actually fairly flat, especially within that area that's getting some snow, but it's because of the valley effect, where you can get some colder air to kind of pool into a valley where that isn't possible in somewhere that's super high in elevation. You'll get some of that colder, denser air to fall down to the surface. We do see some of that happening, but it's mainly just because, again, it is night, and with that being the case, you're not dealing with any effects from the sun. So that warming effect is kind of canceled out, and that should allow for some snow to develop Here to be by Tuesday. This is still Monday night into Tuesday morning, so right around midnight. We're dealing with fairly moderate to heavy snowfall into Wyoming, Utah, eastern Nevada, eastern Idaho. This is next Monday, so this is the upcoming Monday, right after this weekend, where you would be dealing with this event. For a few of the metro areas, just want to kind of point this out. Boise, Idaho, you're probably going to stay all rain out of this. I'm thinking that areas around Elko, Nevada, and northeastern Nevada, you guys will probably actually be on the snowier side of things. So you'll see this in my snowfall forecast, but I'm actually predicting you'll probably see at least maybe an inch or two out of this event, and then higher elevations to your south might get a little bit more. If you go into Salt Lake City, it's going to be a little bit more of a mess around there because you'll have some snow on the southern and eastern side of the metro, and then you go into the Salt Lake itself and the area surrounding there, you'll actually be a little bit warmer, so you'll be dealing with mostly mixed precipitation or rain. So I think if we're looking at one area that has a real challenge in terms of the forecast, it's going to be Salt Lake City. It might also be Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is down here in southeastern Wyoming. They'll also have some issues with the forecast just because they will be in between the rain and the snow. If we move this on to Tuesday, later in the morning, you can see that we have still some of that snow going on into the west, especially for Wyoming, Montana, and Idaho. Again, we have more of that wintry mix into the central and southern Rockies. So for northern Utah especially, where you have kind of that pink and green and blue mixing in, that's all indicating a mix of snow, rain, and ice. So that's not going to be too fun to drive in, definitely, especially if you're going over some of those mountain passes where you'll have the road freeze over and might still be raining, but it's cold enough on the surface to have some freezing rain. So it's going to be a whole mess, especially for some of these areas down in Utah. It'll be a little bit easier to navigate into areas like Arizona and southern Nevada. Over some of those mountain passes, again, it might be a little bit of a struggle, but nothing that's going to be too crazy. And it might even be a little bit easier to travel in a place like southern Montana than it will be in northern Utah, because instead of freezing rain, you're just dealing with a plain snow, which should be plowable, meaning that if the plows get on the road, you'll be able to get that snow cleared, and it shouldn't be too much of an issue. If we move this on, you can see that the storm pretty much stays stagnant, but we see some of that snow turning into rain because it is the early afternoon hours, and then you're going to see that by Tuesday evening and Wednesday morning, you go back into the colder pattern, and you see some of those areas switch back over to snow. This is one part of the forecast that's going to be a little bit tricky right here. This area right here has a lot of uncertainty on whether they'll actually get some snow. In terms of some of these areas, like Denver, I think you'll probably stay mostly in the rain. Scottsbluff, Nebraska, you're going to be kind of borderline. Will be an interesting forecast nonetheless. You will probably be on the mostly rainy side, but I wouldn't count out a few flurries mixing in here and there. Rapid City, South Dakota, you'll probably see some snow mixing in, maybe in the higher elevations. And then, but for the majority of the storm, it should be a rain event. And then again, most of these areas that are from the Rockies and further west should be on the snowier side of things. If we move this on to Wednesday morning, you can see, first of all, that severe weather breaking out in the Central Plains. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but also that very heavy snow into Wyoming and Colorado. And then you can see that's going to pull away to the north, which is good news for those of you who live in the northern plains or even in some of the central provinces of Canada, because I know you guys do need some rain, and definitely you will be getting some of that, maybe on the order of about half an inch to an inch, which is good news. A good thing is that this will be slowing down, so this means that the system will be able to stay over your area probably from Wednesday morning or Wednesday evening into Friday morning, or even maybe a little bit later than that. So you can see the system pulling away by that point. Here's what that would mean if the European model is 100% correct, which we know is probably not going to happen. So we know that some of these probably are a little bit exaggerated in terms of the numbers. So I would say maybe take 2/3 of that number. So if you see a 20 inches over your house, you're probably dealing with more around 13, 14 inches of snow. Basically, just take off 1/3 of whatever you see. So if you have, for example, 10 inches, you're probably going to see 6 or 7. That's some of the things that I like to do, especially earlier in the season where it's still a little bit warm on the ground, so it will be tougher for the snow to actually accumulate, especially at the start. So I like to take off a couple inches just to kind of account for that, because the models are only showing you how much snow would theoretically fall. It's not showing you how much is actually going to stick to your driveway or stick to your porch. So it's a little bit more accurate if you take off a few inches off of some of these reports. If we look at the GFS, you're looking at lower numbers, which I actually agree with a little bit more. I think the GFS is still on the lower end of things, especially down here, but I do agree with it a little bit more on the placement compared to the European model. Here's a look at my forecast. I'm looking at less than 3 inches, so 3 inches or less from Sunday afternoon into Thursday evening especially. We're looking at less than 3 inches for pretty much the entire west, except for the areas around Boise and points west, and then also for eastern Washington, northern Idaho. It looks like you guys will probably miss out on some of that snow. It's still going to just be a little bit too warm, but the Cascades up in Washington and Oregon will definitely get in on their fair share of some snow. Here's a look at the 3 to 5 inch area, and this is going to be for some of the Cascades up in Washington and Oregon, some of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and then also into eastern Nevada, Utah, maybe even into northern Arizona, western Colorado, much of Wyoming, southern Montana, and also a good portion of eastern Idaho, where we're dealing with 3 to 5 inches of snowfall expected from Sunday through Thursday. Here would be the 5 to 10 inch area, which is for still much of the interior mountain west. We're looking at 5+ inches if you live in eastern Idaho, southern Montana, much of central and western Wyoming, western Colorado, and then areas in and around central and southwestern Utah. 10 to 15 inches of snowfall in central Utah, as well as southwestern Colorado near the Durango Mountains, and then also in northern Colorado, central Wyoming, and southern Montana as well, where we could be dealing with a good foot to maybe a 1.5 feet of snow. Here's the 15 to 20 inch mark, and you can see that's in the dark blue for parts of northeastern Utah, southwestern Colorado, as well as a good portion of central Wyoming and south central Montana. And then 20 inches plus, mainly in the higher elevations for northeastern Utah, southwestern Colorado, as well as northwestern Wyoming near Yellowstone and south central Montana. So again, that's going to be mostly restricted to the high elevations. If you're in a valley spot and you're within that 20 inch plus region, you're probably still going to be more 15 to 20, but this is mainly talking about areas that are at the highest of elevations and that are really high up there. So that's what that would mainly pertain to. So this is my I believe second snowfall forecast, I believe, of the season for a winter storm. I think we did one back in, it might have been late September, I'm not quite sure, in the Cascades and also Idaho and Montana. They were getting a little bit of snowfall, and so we did a snowfall forecast on that, but definitely nothing close to what we're expecting for this snow event. And I think I'm gonna probably stick with this type of forecast. If you want me to change anything with the layout, so for example, if any of the colors are a little bit too close to each other, which I am thinking of experimenting with the colors a little bit more, but if any of the colors are maybe hard to distinguish between, just let me know down below and I can switch them up. It really is not going to take me too much time. So any requests that you guys have, just leave them down below, and I can edit these maps anytime, and really it's not too much of a hassle. So I'm thinking of probably doing this for pretty much every winter storm. Maybe in the wintertime I'll stop doing so many on the western US because it's going to be more of a regular occurrence, but definitely anything from the Rockies on eastward I'll have a snowfall forecast on, and I will still have some snowfall forecast for the west. It's a much harder forecast because of all of the elevation differences, of course. So again, this is a snowfall forecast, and it's going to be more of a regular occurrence as we head into November, December, and January. So here's that severe weather for you guys, especially in the central plains. We actually do have an enhanced risk up on the day 3 outlook, which would mean for Sunday in southeastern Oklahoma and northern Texas, which is basically from Dallas all the way to Oklahoma City and Tulsa. So areas within that kind of circular area should be expecting to see some amount of severe weather. And then if we look at for the day 5 outlook, which is for Tuesday, we have a 15% chance, which is equivalent to a slight risk in parts of northern and especially northwestern Texas, western and central Oklahoma, as well as south central Kansas, where we have again that 15% risk of severe weather. This is all going to be driven by this system. You're going to see that because that system is in the west, the warm sector will be up into the central United States, which means that even if you're not in that slight risk, even if you're just in that general thunderstorm risk, you still want to pay attention because you could see a little bit of thunder and lightning. Again, nothing looks to be awfully severe unless you're within that slight risk region, which would be pretty much for Oklahoma and northern Texas, as well as the surrounding areas. But if you're not in there, then I don't think anything too significant will occur, although you still at least want to pay attention to it. And again, this is all driven by that system, which was bringing snow out into the western United States. As that drives through the central plains, it'll bring in some warmer and more moist conditions into the southern and central plains, and that'll provide the basis for some rain and thunderstorm activity in those areas as well. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. If you have any questions or you have any suggestions, just leave a comment down below, and I'll be responding within a couple of hours of you posting that. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.